It says we're on air and we're live now. Good afternoon if you're in Europe, good morning if you're in America, and good night if you're in Australia. I'm joined this afternoon by Colin Hickey from Sky-Futures, and he's going to talk me through their newer version. I guess, is it a newer version of Expanse? Or is it the Flightdeck add-on? What is it, Colin?
Yeah, hi Gary. It's a parallel tool, so it's something for managing drone operations. We have Expanse that you and I have looked at previously, which is used for doing something with all the data on the drone after you've collected the data, reporting to your client or your colleagues, whatever. And then this is more about the drone operator, the pilot themselves, capturing the information, planning the flight, doing all effectively trying to make the boring paperwork a little bit easier.
So it's the pilot side more than the job side, shall we say?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
and then me as the evil boss, can I oversee what? I'll tell you what, can you share it with us and see if maybe you just talk it through with me, and rather than me ranting.
Yeah, great. Yeah. You see my screen, okay?
I can see your screen, yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. So it's flightdeck.sky-futures.com. So I log in, and as you said, it's actually got here the tiles on the homepage. You've got the pilot menu, which if I was just a pilot, that's all I would get. And there's a manager menu as well. You've got the same things on the left. And it's that really. It's a pilot can come in and plan a mission and get everything kind of down on paper about what they're about to do. We don't, as aviators, we don't just want to roll up with a drone in a box, get it out, start flying without having thought about it first and kind of documented what it is we're going to do. That's what it's really about. So for those that know of Sky-Futures, for those that don't, we've been operating since 2009. Doing a lot of inspection traditionally in oil and gas, and diversified in recent years, flying typically like vertical structures, so not so much survey work, though we do get asked to do the occasional bit of survey work. And from that, we've got an ops manual, like a big, it just about fit in a shoebox kind of thing. It'd break your foot if it fell on it. And it's just a lot of paperwork basically that needs doing. You need a method statement, a risk assessment, and a lot of approvals have to be in place, and you have to document that those approvals are in place per mission that you do. And it's just about really capturing that, making sure that you're auditable. If you're going to be doing a kind of inherently hazardous drone mission, albeit less hazardous than rope access, you could say, it still is inherently hazardous, and you need to document that you're doing it right for your own purposes, for insurance, for your clients, and a peace of mind, and their own management system. They have contractor management systems in place, and then aviation authorities, things like that.
So it's to make sure that you as the pilot are ticking all the boxes. So either as you as the pilot as a sole operator, or you as a pilot as part of a group working for a company.
Yeah, exactly. And it's that manager who wants oversight. It's kind of for them. It's an enabler in that sense, because to a bunch of pilots, you want to make sure that you are documenting things well. It's like an aircraft pilot. We have an aircraft pilot works here. Flies 747s and things, and they sign out that the aircraft and take possession of it during the duration of the mission, and then sign it.
So does it very much emulate that then in the whole flight planning situation? So you are signing out the job, as it were, going off and doing the job, and then and then all the data's in one place, and all the paperwork's tidied up. I didn't say that very well, did it? So that's where you're going.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, so it's basically about being an aviation professional, and it does mirror a lot of what goes on in manned aviation. So just kind of taking you through some of the things that happen. It's like a digital version of our ops manual. So everything's kind of, some of it is just dull form filling, which you have to do, unfortunately, and then some of it is automated and a little bit more whizzy in places. So like the simple stuff of just managing your equipment, right? So if I'm an equipment manager, I've got some high level access, I can come in here and see like an oversight of all the kit. And what's very interesting is, traditionally in Sky-Futures, even doing things on paper or in Excel before, we've been building this software over the last year and a half or something like that. And in a paper-based system, it's hard to stop things falling through the cracks. Right? They call it like a Swiss cheese model. You've got these barriers in place, and you're trying to not let bad events happen by having safety checks in place. And if somebody takes a tech log out on a piece of kit, takes it around a mission and comes back, there's a piece of paper sitting in a folder on a shelf saying that there's something wrong with that kit, right? You might do other things as well, like you might put a piece of kit in quarantine on a shelf, but those those systems are not 100% reliable. And if you use software to manage that stuff, it gets a lot easier. So you can see here, there's like a traffic light system saying which of the particular kits are ready for action. If any of those particular pieces of kit had undergone an incident on a mission, then it would be red. And you can't book it out on further missions. You can't check it back in. You can't check it out onto other jobs. So there's just basic, the computer's good at that kind of logic, stopping you from messing up and taking dodgy kit on jobs and making sure that things get followed up well, stuff like that.
Okay, so you've booked your bit of kit out, but surely before that you've made a flight plan, haven't you, or something like that? Or do you book your kit out first?
Yeah. So the three things that we look at in the software, there's managing equipment, which is is a thing on its own. Equipment gets used on jobs. There's also managing pilots. So we've got personnel as well. So we've got records of the various pilots and their qualifications to do the job. And also have various qualifications like medical certificates, ability to go offshore, whatever it is, right? And that all just sits there. So you've got all of these resources that are used on jobs, and then you've got the jobs themselves, as you say. So here under missions, I can go in and see any that are assigned to me. Now I'm not a pilot, so this is blank for me, right? But if I go in as a fleet manager, you'll see all the the jobs across the entire business. And one of the things that we put in here, as a differentiator, and because this is how we work, is some kind of intellectual property, right? So there are standard templates for how we do things. And you don't start everything from scratch, right? You'd be mental to. So when one of our ops managers or a pilot sets the system up to go and do a job, they can pick from an existing template. And this is what we do anyway, right? So you've got a method statement and all of the hazards in a risk assessment. You start to like, well, let's say I'm doing a training or public demo flight, which you're giving somebody a training course, or you're doing something, keeping your currency up or whatever it is. You click on that, and you've got exactly as you said, you've got your plan. And there's a fair bit to it actually, and this is why software is good at this stuff, because this would have all traditionally been paperwork, right? So you're basically progressing through a series of bits of paperwork that you need to do. So there's a method statement, and a lot of this is pre-populated because I'm doing a standard training or demo flight. And if this was an offshore wind turbine inspection, there'd be a lot of information in here about the way I'm going to fly, what safety precautions I need to take, how I do waste management, all the kind of standard things that would go into a mission plan for a particular application. And when all that's done, you fill it all out, you tick a box, and you make your way through this process. You get through to risk assessment. There's a bunch of hazards that have been identified. You can see there's quite a few, and these things are like pre-canned. So when you buy a license, you subscribe to Flightdeck, this list of kind of best practice templates for how you inspect certain bits of kit.
Sorry to interrupt you, Colin. Do you have best practices across several industries then? So if I wanted to get into oil rig inspection, have you got a template set up for that?
Yeah, I mean the template alone. If I just go back one, there's flare stacks offshore, for example.
I see. I'm sorry. I see electrical pylon there, and yeah. I had a question from Craig Thompson, who asked if you could talk through anything about power lines. So I think that's a perfect. Would it be possible to look at that one?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, there's as a blank, it'll have in some kind of standard things about keeping a certain distance and what it is you're looking for on the structure and things like that. But this is the pilot's tool, right? So in our recommended way of doing the job, you do send two people. You have an inspector controlling the camera and a pilot doing the flying. What an inspector's looking for has to, of course, merge with what the pilot does. And that's really, if you wanted to go do an electrical pylon inspection, you need to come at it from two perspectives, which is hard, right? So you've got the where does the pilot need to fly to stay safe, and what does the inspector need to get to actually get meaningful information out of things. So looking down the method statement, if I go into any of the fields, like define the scopes of work, it will be specific to the structure that you're flying a lot of the time, depending on whether it's a big airframe or just a pole and things like that. The hazards are all, some of them are kind of common across different inspections, and some of them are specific to having high voltage electrical lines above your head and stuff like that. Some of the things that we've worked out over time with electrical lines are things like if you are doing a thermal inspection or you're trying to spot faults on the wires and things like that, sometimes you need to kind of fly below looking up. You've got the sky as a background rather than looking kind of across where you've got a messy background that's harder to detect problems in. So there's that kind of stuff like buried in here in amongst the various
so this is lining up your risk assessment and all the stuff before you go out and do the job to make sure that part of the paperwork satisfies the power company. In this case, they'll have systems and procedures, and they'll probably ask that you comply with them. And this is how your pilot is getting that bit of paper ready. Is that right?
Pretty much, yeah, exactly. And then one of the things that it offers, of course, because you've got to start at the 10, and then on the left, if you've got the right rights, you can actually edit these templates. So
right.
It's a continuous improvement loop. And if you know, if you're doing a job in Holland for one company, or you're doing a job in the US for another company, whatever it is, or in different states or different companies in the US, they're actually going to have different procedures, different, you know, things you've got to sign off and things like that. And you can build those things into here. So the next time you go and do the job, it's that much more efficient. The idea.
So Gary's going off to do this inspection today. And I've signed it all off, and it all happens again in a month's time. But next time, Colin's going to do that inspection. And can you then pull? This is job X, Y, or Z. Can you then pull the template for that job as Colin rather than Gary?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can. Yeah, so you would kind of you'd set it up as you know that we're going to do a lot of work for this firm, and it might be different pilots that are doing it. So you go into your kind of mission templates and basically add a new mission template in here, and this is kind of like sitting one level behind the actual record of missions that you do. So you introduce a new one that's based on one that already exists, and you publish that, and in that way you're kind of constantly evolving one that you've done.
Right.
You know, people do that in a Word document today. It's just you know, it's orphaned off from a lot of other information in that way, but here it's all sitting together. Some of the nicest stuff actually, like this is like the painful paperwork bit, which is a pain in the backside. Some of the nicer things that, you know, using a computer to do the work. I've got an integration.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah, so this is like step 3. We saw risk assessment method statement. You're kind of, you know, you're ticking these things off as you go along. You know, task specific details have been added, and then you've got you know, an integration with AirMap, which is, you know, one of the airspace classification tools out there that, you know, they have different information, different bits of the world. I think software-wise is a bit of a competitive space for these guys. These guys are doing a nice job. They've got the information that people have submitted to them, and it's nicely visualized. And, you know, it's great. You can see wherever it is you happen to be flying. You zoom in and see what are the restrictions in the areas that you happen to be. You know, it's useful stuff.
And then, okay, so if you find that the bit of power line you're doing is in the middle of some controlled airspace of some sort or some other hazard, is there a step built in then to click you need to mitigate this risk and then show that you have mitigated that risk?
I guess there is. Yeah, I would actually want to speak to one of my pilots to ask the actual mechanism for how that's done. But yeah, that is the idea. Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
I mean, if there is a particular approval needed for the job, you know, like on the day, this is getting, as with most things, like with sales, right? You're kind of selling a project, you're turning up to do the job. You would typically like add an approval to the job that's necessary, and on the day you need to tick the box to say, I've got this permission on this day, I've given this NOTAM.
Well, I think you've answered that. My last question, haven't you? That is the position where you've seen you need something, and that's the bit where you show you've got the bit of paper.
Yeah, exactly. So it's about like leaving an audit trail and saying, I need this. Somebody's decided this is needed ahead of time, and I've got it on the date, and I can therefore do the job. And you've got a record of it. Yeah.
So this is the boring paperwork that life forces us to do.
Yeah.
How does this then link into a job? Have you got any demo jobs or anything where it flows all the way through? So you've done this flight on the whatever today is, we'll call it the 1st of May for argument's sake, it's not. So then, well, then what happens? How does the boss know it's done, and then how does the actual work that's been done on that day pull in or tie in with this system?
Right. Yeah. So here's a job. This is something that looks like a colleague did on Sunday, and the status of things. Well, there's several areas. So one of them is we've got like an allocation. So here for the manager, they can go into allocations. They can see a calendar of what's going on for a start, so they can see kind of things that are planned out. And this is going to flag up whether we put the same, the same person on two jobs in two different places, or the same kit won't be back off a job and it's expected to be on the next job and things like that. So it's basically, it's data overlap checks and things.
So now we're looking. Are you looking in just the pilot view, or as a manager overview?
I'm looking as a manager now, yeah, across multiple pilots. So I can see, I've given a demo of this, and there's my name. And then we've got Nick Rogers and Omar and various pilots out doing work in different places.
So now with the helicopter view, I think that's a business speak way of saying, isn't it? Overview of the company. That's all the equipment, all the jobs, everything that's going on, and the status of it. Does it red or green or anything like that? If a job fails, will it move a job? Sorry, I'm making stuff as I go along. I'm just thinking, what would I like it to do for me? And one of the things I'd like it to do for me is when I fail to get a mission done for whatever reason, I'd like it to reschedule it, check the equipment, and do all the permissions and everything.
Right, yeah, that's a really good idea. It doesn't do that automatically today, but it kind of, it puts it at your fingertips that you can open the thing up from the calendar, and if it's not kind of locked and finished or whatever's going on, you can edit things.
Okay.
But yeah, like kind of automatically rolling things forward is a nice idea. You get people and equipment to all kind of agree on things. That's quite nice. One of the other things we've got is like a kind of a safety overview. So this is, for our head of kind of training and risk and things like that, having a dashboard with a count. I think there's some kind of, there's like 5 ASRs open. I don't think that's true. I think that's just somebody's tried it out and not cleaned their data up, unfortunately. Things like that. So it's nice to have an overview of what's going on in the business. How many people are nearing the expiry of a particular qualification, like the medical certificate, things like that. So there's stuff in here to help a manager plan. This is Sky-Futures like across the world rather than regionally, but at some point in the future, we'll probably have regions in there as well. As the customer base grows and their demands get a bit more sophisticated, we'll kind of keep up with that. You also mentioned about kind of looking at a job and seeing it. Manage missions. If I go to manage missions and look at this kind of thing that my colleague Omar was doing on Sunday, there is the ability to upload log files. So this is one of my favorite things because humans sitting there typing things in a computer is not really the vision of kind of technology, right? It's more about what can the computer do for you while it's turning your electricity meter around. So one of the things we have is the ability to upload log files, and we've built this out based on what we know and we've experienced. So we use DJI drones and Aztec drones, which I think you and I have discussed in the past. And what you do, you get back off a job and you plug your drone in, or you take the memory card out, or whatever the format is on the drone, and you drag and drop the log file to here. And and they're typically massive, right? As you'll know, they're gigabytes often. So we just we open the file locally and read data out of it that we need, and then save that data up on the server. And the reason for doing this is for lots of reasons, really. Well, you want to see where you've flown, right? So your manager wants to get their beady eyes on where you went, right?
Yeah.
You might want to look at it. If Gary inspected an electrical pylon last month and then Colin's doing it next month, I can see where Gary flew to see the flight path, get the visual eye. Well, I'll show you. I'll click on view. We visualize the flight path from the GPS data of the drone into the 3D world that sits behind Expanse and Flightdeck, these software tools. So the idea being the pilot's entering data in here, the inspector.
Now, I'll put a link to our previous video, which was a walkthrough of Expanse. But basically, you bring everything into 3D, a big structure or whatever, and you can tag and mark it. I don't know if you can show us that at all in this, but you tag and mark a 3D structure with the inspection points. Was that a good explanation?
Yeah, exactly. So this is more just a pilot element. So I think I'm
Okay.
just having a problem loading this page, sorry, or it's a dodgy log file. But it's not a complete science with some of the log files. But let me try and find a different one.
It's all right. This is good. Live television is always good for fault finding, or finds the fault, I should say, I suppose.
Right. Yeah. Well, I'll open up that well. The 3D world's up now. For some reason, it just hasn't loaded in. We're kind of up in the air for some reason. But this is it's like a three-dimensional world with elevation, which of course is important if you're operating a drone at different heights. And it pulls in Google and OpenStreetMap imagery, and it puts basically the flight path line, which I would love to show you.
Well, it just shows we haven't set this up, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean, I got off another call about 1 minute before speaking to you. So.
That's right.
Yeah, and the idea is, well, as I was saying, like you can see the flight in 3D. One pilot can look at it, another pilot can look at it. The person in charge of training and regulatory compliance in the business and all that kind of stuff can look at it. You know, you kind of head of compliance. If there's an accident, you can see what the drone thought it was doing rather than what you thought it was doing. So you can sit and do a bit of root cause analysis around it, which is really powerful because accidents happen. There's also the other reason for doing this is, as you said, in the other software that we've shown you, is all based on what the inspector does, which is your drone has flown and taken lots of pictures. And where the drone was is an important part of what you were taking the picture of. You know where the drone was, you've got a better idea of what you were taking a picture of. So when you zoomed right in on nuts and bolts on some kind of structure, you're not always.
Can you put some of that? Is that too far away to talk about that in the background?
No. It's
because otherwise we've just got that black page.
This is
You can see how to contact you now. Your email address came up there.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no problem. So if I go to like an anonymous company, I think a nice example. I think I've just got like a simple flare here, right? So it doesn't really show the structure like the client data. So the idea is there's a 3D world. You can see that same kind of greeny coloured crosshairs, right? And in here you've got the things the inspector has found. The idea being that you click and you're taken to the finding that was there. And of course, there's great survey tools out there that will do this plan view looking at the ground. It's harder with complex porous lattice structures like this. So we're kind of working quite hard on understanding the drone telemetry, merging it with computer vision to try and work out where these things are when you're taking the picture, stuff like that. And the idea is what the pilot has done and the information that they were handling is fantastic input to help the inspector later. Because if you can go to where the drone was when it took this picture, you know roughly what you're taking a picture on, what you're taking a picture of around the structure, the idea. So this same kind of 3D world sits behind both.
Yeah.
I think there's a problem here with this file, and it's just not getting read into the system. I should have been a bit more Blue Peter for our UK.
Here's one I made earlier. Yeah. Well, all right. We'll take your word for it. I know it works in the other thing. So you've got you can see where the pilot's been. You can see how the last guy performed that inspection, which is going to be useful to you if you're going to somewhere you don't know. And can, as a company, then again, let's use the power line analogy. Can you see how far down the line how far along the line your pilots have gone and that sort of thing? Can there be a big helicopter overview of that?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Let me. They can. I'd love to stick a file in here for you actually and show it you. But you basically you've got a 3D map of the world. If the log file works, which we tend to find the DJI ones work very well. They're pretty bulletproof. They've got a well published SDK online, and we understand their files well. You saw there that we had a bit of trouble with the Aztec file, but yeah, you can see on a 3D map of the world, like the little red lines of progress of where the drone flights were. You see a nice, a nice kind of human monkey brain visualization of where you've flown and where you haven't flown. So it's really helpful from an inspection perspective.
So who well, maybe let's continue on. Is there much more to tell me about it?
Yeah, I mean the last kind of whizzy bits, the bits that are actually computed are we don't just use a log file visualizing, but we use it to capture information for audit purposes as well, and for kind of operational management. So obviously every pilot keeps a logbook, and we can tell for how long the pilot's been flying, because we know when the drone was flying. And we also know the kind of the burn down of the equipment as well. So we'll have a limit on how many hours a motor is permitted to be used for, things like that. Because we're assigning to a particular mission, because I'm assigning a particular bundle of kits to a mission. So that death case one that's got a particular drone in it, certain batteries with certain serial numbers, one of the payloads, whatever other kit is kind of ancillary to that, sitting in a bundle. When I upload my log file, I know that was the kit that was exposed to the operating point, and that all gets logged against that equipment. So it's kind of automatic kind of usage logging, which is, that's one of the biggest pains, getting back to the office and having to sit there doing a bunch of paperwork. You don't want uncontrolled equipment going out that you don't know its usage time and things like that. So automating that, that's one of our pilots, pains in the back.
All right. Gary's in a rush. He doesn't care. He's just grabbed a bit of kit off the shelf and he's gone off and done a flight. Yeah. Is there any way of flagging up that I've done that other than when the log files come in? And I suppose the data's still going to arrive. I think I've answered it for myself, because I'm going to be putting the images back in. I'm going to want to rush back and put the images into the system, aren't I? And get it in there. But would it flag up that I haven't procedurally, as a pilot, I've been a naughty boy?
This is the thing. I mean, far from kind of putting a tag around someone's leg and giving them an electric shock, there's only so many things that you can protect against, and a lot of the the safety management system of a business and the instructions, the work instructions in an ops manual have to be complied by the user, and a pilot shouldn't be checking out the UAV, using our kind of, it would be called log, but we're not sure that everybody calls it that. We call it sign in out drone. And this is kind of separate to the missions, right? So if you're going to take bundle one, for example, off the shelf and sign it out, you've got to make a record that you've signed it out and add your signature to it. Now you might be signing it out for a fortnight because you're about to go off and do several jobs for several clients in a particular region of the world. And in that case, we separated out the check-in, check-out system from missions. But this should always get done by the pilot. Nobody should ever just take a drone off the shelf, take it down somewhere and start flying. And that's down to the professionalism of the pilot. So it's,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's part of the entire company's, as you say, safety management system, isn't it? And your way of doing business. The less slapdash you are, the more likely you are to make a profit, I think. But that's a bit too grown up for me to say things like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's what you kind of, you're trading on your reputation with when you're doing something that's hazardous like this, especially if you're in an industry that does suffer from safety issues, whether it's electrical transmission and distribution lines or storage tanks or airports or wherever it is that are kind of pining for drone services because they're of good value. If you're introducing more problems, it doesn't bode well for our industry. No.
Yeah. No, that's grand. Well, thanks very much, Colin. If that's your lot, I don't know how to end this. Well, that's grand. So, Colin, where can people find that? I'll put a link below, but you speak it out to us in words first.
Yeah, so Sky-Futures.com. Yeah, if you go to Sky-Futures.com, you can find out more information. So we've got there's various things we offer. So we offer software, we offer training and certification. You want to become a pilot, or if you're an inspector and you want to learn to operate a payload alongside a pilot, all that kind of stuff. So under software, we have Expanse. So we had a quick look at there with the flight inspection results, and then Flightdeck, which is this new software for the pilot for logging all the data. You can subscribe.
Does Expanse and Flightdeck come together, or are they two separate products that come together?
Separate products you subscribe to. It's a good point, actually. I mean, typically, if you're a pilot who is inspecting, it's it's dodgy, right? You've got to maintain line of sight with your drone, right? Which means you can't have first-person view goggles on doing the inspection through the camera. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there has to be two people there, and effectively, Expanse is for the inspector who's getting the camera data and cares about that. Flightdeck's for the pilot who's watching the drone. Now, in the future, these things might change as drone capabilities change and regulations change and all this kind of stuff. But at the moment, yeah, they're two products that would be used by the same operation, by the same mission, effectively.
So it's one Flightdeck for the pilot, Expanse for the inspection person, and then those two bits of software for the company tell you what both sides of the coin are doing. They bring the data. The data comes together for both parties.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's cool. And what sort of money are we talking about? People always ask that.
I think it's like $41 a month, something like that. So $495 a year for a Flightdeck account. If you're some of the first people to get on board with us, some months back, had a larger number of users. So you get some money off or users free if you buy multiple at once. That's just traditional sales kind of thing. But it's that's kind of pricing.
Okay, that's great. And a very brief overview. You're based in the UK, but you have operations elsewhere in the world. Maybe just a quick company history for those that didn't see the last video.
Yeah. So thanks, Gary. Yeah, so Sky-Futures started operating just kind of 2009, 2010. Got offices in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, in Abu Dhabi in the Emirates, in London is a head office, also in Aberdeen in the UK, servicing the kind of oil and gas market there, and in Houston in the US. And we have pilots and inspectors that do kind of typically specialize in vertical infrastructure inspection. You've got capability in-house for writing inspection reports in electrical, wind turbine, process field, so oil and gas, energy, pharmaceuticals, chemicals, things like that is where we spend most of our time. More recently, got involved in work on bridges and buildings and railway infrastructure and stuff like that. So very good fun, all very interesting. Yeah, that's it.
So you're end-to-end service providers for the dangerous inspection stuff, not wedding photos and real estate shots. It's dangerous infrastructure that requires qualified people to be looking at it.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, we also have a training. So there's really three parts to our business. There's the service provision, which you described it very well there, and then there's training, because of course the future of drones is very dynamic. It's a young industry that's changing very rapidly, and we actually have training schools in the UK and the US where we'll train people to be pilots, whether that's someone who's walked in off the street and wants a career change, or if that's the boots on the ground in the business already. So if you are a facilities management firm running a large facility in industrial complex or airport, like that, you can come and get trained to fly a drone according to our work practices from our kind of industrial experience. And in parallel to those two things, we've got services training, and then as you've seen today, we also offer software.
Well, that's fantastic. Thanks very much for your time. I will put a link to the previous video in here so people can catch up with Expanse, and I look forward to seeing how this works, and hopefully speaking to you again. I still want to get back and see about that Rust stuff that you had and all the other sort of James Bond tech stuff that you were working on. I'm very interested in seeing all that.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, we'll set that up. Yeah, that's coming quite soon.
Beautiful. All right. Thanks very much for taking the time to run me through Flightdeck from Expanse and Sky-Futures. So I look forward to seeing it all again. If you're watching this on a Tuesday at 2100 GMT, later o'clock today, we'll be doing drone stuff this week. So it's a busy day for Hangouts today. And subscribe, do all those other things you're supposed to do on the internet. Thanks very much for watching, dear viewer. Thanks very much for taking your time out, Colin. And hopefully I'll speak to you again soon. Cheers.
Bye.
Cheers.